Okay, everybody, thanks for jumping on today for the kickoff call for Integrity Capital as it pertains to the loan that we're working on with Mackey Credit Union. Mike, thanks for coming on, and then Dan, who is the borrower. And so thanks everybody for jumping on the call today. And just to give you sort of everybody on the call, just to understand, like, why do we do a kickoff call? What are we trying to accomplish here? What's that going to look like today? And so really the objective of the kickoff call is that we can address a lot of the particulars of the loan and any little nuances that we need to address. And also for the intention and the purpose of making sure that we're not being reactive, but we're being proactive and addressing things like timelines, the details of the loans to make sure there's clarity with everybody. We're also going to set expectations of timelines and accountability for everybody. So really, this is an all-encompassing thing we're going to do to make sure that we're as thorough as possible, really with the intention of to have the greatest experience and success for the loan. So thanks everybody for coming on. So first off, I know that this is a 150 unit apartment complex construction that we're essentially dealing with. And Mike, you're obviously the loan officer on it. And I know that John is the loan associate. In terms of the title company, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we're using First American on this. And I think that's Janice. That's going to be the officer. So we'll obviously grab her phone number as well. But Mike, do you know, are these going to be standard documents, or are we going to have to, because it's such a large loan, do you think that we're going to have to do something outside of Laser Pro? We have to do legal on this, or what do you think?
Yeah, so the size and scope of the deal will require outside counsel. So we'll have our legal team prepare the docs. Okay,
great. Do you have any idea, just if we're doing outside counsel, like what that might cost at all? Like, is just rough guesstimate?
So typically, like, standard is $750. But if we have to get into the weeds and put in some covenants or anything like that, that could be additional cost.
Okay, great. And typically on that, Mike, when would you say that they're going to start drafting those documents?
After we get an approval and a signed commitment letter back is typically when we can, start preparing for those items.
Okay, great. So just to go over the goal for this particular transaction, obviously it's to obtain a loan, to build to do a construction loan for this 150 unit apartment complex. Does that sound correct, Dan?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right. And Dan, would you consider yourself the decision maker, or are there any other parties that are involved? I know you have a couple of investors that are behind the scenes, but would you consider yourself the main decision maker on this?
Yes, I will be the main decision maker with the majority of the equity.
Okay, all right. And just for clarity purposes, is it safe to assume, Mike, that this is going to be a full recourse loan, that it's going to be a recourse to the entity as well as to Dan individually for the construction and the permanent loan?
That is correct.
Okay. Yep. And Dan, do you have a trust on the transaction?
I do have a trust.
Okay. All right. And are you aware that Mike, is it safe to assume that the trust is going to have to guarantee as well?
Yeah, not always. I would just say, Dan, is the majority of your assets held into the trust?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, then yeah, we would need the trust to be a guarantor.
Okay, all right. And Dan, is that going to be a problem, or is that okay? I just want to make sure that you're
Yeah, that's no problem. In the past, I've had to do it that way, so that's no issue.
okay. And Mike, obviously, land and building. Is there anything else you're going to have to take as collateral, or is it safe to assume that we're going to be fine with just land? And
Yeah, that should be sufficient as long as complete values are good with the appraisal, and we build in a decent contingency in there. We should be fine.
Okay. And so, and Mike, when are you going to actually go into committee? Like how long till you actually, what's the process to actually go into committee, and what is Dan and team going to have to sort of have?
Yeah, so kind of high level process and flow is initially we'll get the cost breakdown, we'll get a full of the project, and then I'll get that over to my construction team manager. And then once he runs through his numbers, he kind of adjusts the cost breakdown to include our inspection fees and things like that. And once we have that, and then a full package, we can submit to underwriting. Underwriting typically, right, will take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, and then committee, about another few days, depending, because we meet on committee on Mondays and Thursdays. So depending on when the underwriter has it prepared, and then after a committee, then we'll get a final decision, and then shortly after committee, we'll get the commitment letter out.
Okay.
So approximately, as long as everything gets submitted in a timely manner, we can probably have a commitment out within 30 to 40 days.
Okay, that's great. And do you guys actually issue a commitment letter, Mike, or is that just more of a verbal?
We issue a commitment letter.
Okay, great. And what, I know we talked a little bit about John, when he sent this over, and said that the loan to value was 75% loan to value and 75% loan to cost, whichever is less. Is that a safe assumption? And then the second question to that is, is that based upon an as complete value or stabilized, or what's kind of your methodology for the loan to value, just so we're clear?
So yeah, obviously we would, at the end of construction, when we get issued the CO, the property is not going to be stabilized. So as complete, we would need the value to fall in line with that 75%. Obviously, as the property stabilizes, the value will increase.
Okay, got it. And with respect to like the rate lock, I would imagine, since this is a construction, it's floating, we're not going to actually lock the rate at close. I imagine once it goes to perm that we're going to be locking rate at some point, typically, but generally you guys don't lock rate even until we get to close. Is that correct?
Right. When we close on our construction loan is when the rate is locked, even for our long term.
Okay.
For how we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the adjustment period is, I think are you going off the prime?
Our adjustment is off the 10-year treasury.
Okay, so you're going off the 10-year treasury, and what's the spread? How do we what kind of spread do we deal with?
So for us in particular, it's just when the loan docs are generated. So we approve a rate, right? We'll have the rate approved in our commitment letter. So let's just say it's 3.75%. when the loan docs are generated, our spread will be on that date when the loan docs are generated. The spread is the difference between the 3.75% and the 10-year treasury on that day.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. And then, so because it's construction, Mike, will it be adjusting on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis? What's the frequency of adjusting it during construction, or does it fix? I don't know.
So our rate for the construction period is, let's see, it's prime plus, I believe it's a point.
Okay, so you're prime +1, and it'll adjust with prime. And
For the construction, yeah.
okay, got it.
Period.
Yeah. And is there a prepayment penalty on this, Mike?
No, not on the long term, no.
Okay, all right.
Or the construction.
And have you taken this in already to kind of review with the higher ups so far? I mean, is everybody kind of given its blessing sort of at this point? Do you feel fairly confident?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we're essentially doing a 25 amortization with call it a 10-year call, but it's floating for 18 months until the construction's completed, and that'll just finish off on the 10 years, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then you guys impounding for taxes and insurance?
We don't, no.
Okay. All right. Great. And just to kind of walk back through the fees, and Dan, we always try to do this just for clarity's sake. The lender's fees, Mike, what are you charging? From what I understand on the term sheet, you guys are at 1% for the origination fee on your side. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're 1% on the construction.
Okay.
And long term, I believe we're at 3/4.
Okay, got it. All right, so that's being 175. And so the appraisal, any idea what you think that'll run? Guesstimate?
Depending on the market and the timeline right now, they're a little elevated. So, and the project size, I would say probably close to 5,000.
Okay. And do you guys have an appraisal review fee that you guys charge as well?
Yeah, it'll be 500.
Okay. And any doc prep fees or anything like that?
Yes, for this particular deal size would be 850.
Okay. And any underwriting or any other fees?
No.
Okay. Okay. No closing fees or application fees or anything like that. And do you want a good faith deposit?
Typically, we just have, depending on timelines, if we're in a time crunch, we can typically order the appraisal in at the same time it's being underwritten. But typically, even we just ask for the deposit to be the cost of the appraisal.
Okay. And is it okay if the broker fee is paid inside of escrow?
Yes.
Okay. And Dan, does that all line up with what you were represented when the loan was there?
Yep, that's all perfect. Thank you.
All right. And I want to talk a little bit about just the construction. Dan, do you have a budget fixed at this point? I mean, have you gotten hard bids and at this point?
Yeah, so we had 3 bids and we decided to go with the Arco construction company.
Okay.
And I believe that should be in the file as well.
Okay, great. And, Mike, on your side, is there a particular amount that you want as contingency? I know that we had 5% contingency, but do you need more than that, or?
So right now with elevated cost, we are doing 20%, but we can bring it down to 10% if we get a majority of the subs bids in.
Okay, got it. So does that make sense, Dan, just in terms of what you need to do on your side?
Yep, thank you. That's perfect.
Okay. And owner equity, just for the sake of making sure, like, Dan, how much have you spent on the project to date? I just want to make sure you're getting credit for that.
Yeah, so I've spent about $60,000 on architecture drawings and all different like zoning and all that. So yeah, I would say $60,000, and I have receipts to prove it too to submit.
Great. And Mike, is that are those kind of acceptable costs for you, and that's all in line, with what you'll consider?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll be able to use that as an injection.
Okay. And if we get done, we got a $10 million loan. Say we get done, and he's $9.5 million and has $500,000 left. How is that treated on disbursement? Like, can he use those funds for anything at that point? Are you just going to let it go down to the zero and you take that money back, or how do you have the unused contingency essentially is?
We can take a look based on values and what the appraisal comes back, where the review gets done. But yeah, we can consider that.
Okay, great.
To be dispersed back.
Dan, when do you think you're going to get an actual contract, a GC contract signed from the general?
We're expecting it hopefully by next week. I want to say next Friday the 17th is a good date to expect that by.
Okay, got it. And are there any missing contracts at all right now? Like, are you still waiting for the architect and the engineer or anything like that? Or are we, do you feel like we're pretty tight on things?
We are still waiting on a couple from, I want to say it's the architect.
Okay.
So that should be here within the next couple days, but with a weekend, probably late next week as the GC contract as well. So I would say align the timing of both would be relatively good.
And what's the tentative start date? So Mike, if this takes, call it, 45 days to get this all done, let's just say 50 for the sake of, safety. When does the GC feel like they would be ready to close? Because we're talking September, so October, now we're in November. So, let's assume we're closing the 18th, 19th that week. Is the GC going to be ready to go, or do you think the permits are going to be ready by that time, Dan? Or
I do believe they will be. Everything's been submitted to the city, and they were on board. So we should have final plans and permits done very shortly.
Okay. And I just want to, sometimes this becomes an issue. And Mike, I think you've dealt with this before. I just want to make sure there's no work that's going to be done on the site, before they do the loan, because then we're going to run into kind of a broken priority. Have you, or do you plan on doing anything to the site?
I do not, no.
Okay. And then Mike, who will handle the draws and the inspections?
So our construction team, it's either going to be Mike Plazier or Tammy and their team. So that usually we just get the GC in contact directly with them, okay. And they'll submit their draw submittal form, and then we'll get we have inspection periods that will outline. Usually we do one a month. That's kind of how we typically do it. But if there's a significant draw request, we may require an inspection in connection with that. So, but yeah, they just in email contact with them.
What would you say the construction roughly cost per inspection would run typically?
I believe, it varies depending on location. So I would say probably 500, 450 to 500.
Okay, that's good. Any other construction fees that you guys charge, or is that the only?
Yeah, just origination and then, the inspection fees, but those are, obviously going to a third party. But
Okay.
That's it.
And who controls the funds? Then you guys controlling the funds that are to be dispersed? Like, is that?
Yeah. So once you they submit the draw form, our team will send it directly out to the GC. The GC,
And Dan, is the total budget 15 million?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, all right. Great. So we're essentially, I think, talking, if I remember correctly, you were probably 11 million for hard costs and 4 million for soft costs.
Correct.
And I don't think there's any FF&E in that budget. We talked about permits, so those will be ready.
Yep.
And plans are, I know they're almost done, if I'm correct.
That's
Contract,
correct.
GC contract's not in yet. Architect contract's not in yet. GC cost estimate, we kind of talked about that for their budget. And allowable contingency, I know we said 10%, Mike, is kind of what seems reasonable. Mike, when they give you the budget, are you okay for them reallocating line items in the budget? Like, or do you guys get sticklers on that? Once they have it in the line item, they can move it to another line item, or what's kind of the protocol?
We can do that. And I think it benefits us because we'll do, separate conference calls with the borrower, with Dan and our construction manager, and we can go through those items. But yeah, I mean, developer fee, project manager fee, sometimes those can be added together, so we don't have a problem with that.
Okay, got it. And do you have to have them do an AIA form for the draws, the GC?
Yeah, we have actually a form that we'll send out to get the draws completed.
And will you require a bond for the GC as well?
Yes.
All right.
And we have a questionnaire that we will have the GC fill out as well.
Great. And interest reserves obviously will be baked into that budget. Purchase price, I know, Dan, for the land was 2 million. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Is this a 1031 or not?
It's not.
Okay. And Dan, when does your money go hard? I mean, I know you're
hard.
It's into September, but when is it?
October the 8th.
Okay. And close of escrow is November 9th. I think it's at the 19th or the 22nd. I can't remember.
The 19th. Yeah.
All right. Any amendments that you've done on the contract at all, or do we have everything?
No, you have everything. Everything is accurate.
Okay. And what's going to be your source of injection, Dan?
It's going to be cash from my personal savings and checking accounts.
Okay.
I also do have retirement accounts that I can use if needed.
Okay, great. And you've obviously been physically to the property.
Correct.
Okay. So is it safe to assume right now that you have 5 to 5.5 million in cash, Dan?
I do, yes.
All right. So legal, obviously, we've talked about that. Do you need a special purpose entity at all, Mike?
No, for a holding company or
Well,
what
just
are you
like,
referring to?
like you have to have a separate, so he can't have an LLC that he's already used. It has to be a brand new one that's set up and never had any activity in it, or does that matter to you?
It doesn't matter to us. However, he wants to
Okay,
manage it.
great. Dan, I know that you were in a lawsuit, and I just wanted to bring that up for everybody's sake. I know that it sounded like you guys were getting close to settling, and it seemed like the worst case scenario was going to be $500,000. Does that seem correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And do you think the attorney could draft a document for the lender just to make sure that that's clear, so it's not an open-ended thing?
Yeah, I actually already requested that, so you should have that any day.
Okay, great. So title commitment is in. I've talked to the title company. It seems like everything's clean. Are there any endorsements that you guys need, Mike? Any specific endorsements that we should know?
Yeah, we do have a couple. I can send those over to you. I don't have them
Okay.
committed to memory.
Yeah, if you could send those endorsements over, that'd be great. And will you have the lender legal review the title? Do they have to review title as well when you do the docs?
Yeah, so they'll generate the docs, and then once title commitment is ready, we'll send that over to them so they can review that with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Dan, are you going to be in town around that time just to sign loan documents?
Yep, I'll be here.
Okay. And it will be at the title company.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Okay. And great. So we're going to take title as DDX LLC. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And that's a new entity and it is formed. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Have you executed and finished the operating agreement?
So that is almost finished. There's just a couple things that I'm reviewing with my attorney, so not quite yet.
Okay, got it. So we're still waiting for that. So if we can work on that. The members' entities, and there's
How soon do you need the operating agreement,
Pro-
Mike?
I'm sorry?
How soon will you need the operating agreement?
That's usually a closing item. So
Okay, great.
towards the end, yeah.
Okay. You're going to have to get a phase one, correct, Mike?
We won't know that quite yet. We usually just run an EDR, and if everything comes back fine, it usually just checks 1/8 a mile surrounding the property, and if there's no issues, then we shouldn't have any problem. We shouldn't need one.
Okay. And Dan, just to confirm, there's no equity investor that has 20% or more. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'll be the majority. Yeah.
Okay. So apartment, the address I believe was 1230 Dobson in Mesa, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it will be, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 110,000 square feet total. We don't know about the environmental issues. It's not in a flood zone, just unless you know something I don't.
No, that's correct.
Okay. And we'll see what the value comes out. If we can get those comps, Dan, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I'll ask my broker for them.
Okay. So we'll need that. We don't need SNDAs. And so that's going to be non-applicable. No additional collateral unless we have some valuation issues. And if you can get me your insurance agent's contact information, Dan, because I want to kind of deal with that, now and not wait till the last minute.
Of course.
So I think everybody's on the board. Mike, do you think the 19th works for you with respect to closing as well?
Yeah, no, we can certainly make that timeline, as long as, we get pretty, timely responses if we come back with any questions.
Okay. And so we're talking probably 6 weeks for docs, 5 weeks, 4 weeks for review. Mike, just so you know that I'm going to be the contact point for the appraiser. So just let
Okay.
me, when do you think you're going to order the appraisal?
So I can request bids here right now. And then once I get those back, we can I'll relay those back to you. It usually takes, 3 to 4 days to get the bids back. Once you decide, we can engage and then send the funds over to us, and then we can get engaged.
Great. And Dan, just final thing, can you make sure, do you think you can get all those documents I sent over to you within the next week? Because we're sort of on a time frame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
This is my primary goal, so we'll get it done.
Okay, great. Well, guys, I will circulate an email based upon the kickoff call, just addressing all these things that we just talked about. And, appreciate everybody taking the time. I know it was a little bit longer than we thought, but we try to be thorough and make sure that we're getting everything done so we can make sure to get it completed. So thanks everybody for taking the time, and we'll look forward to a successful transaction.
Thank you for your time,
Excellent.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.